Welcome to Revive Ministries Podcast. This is a new year, and recently I checked the count. The episode, obviously there's some that are just updates, but 70 plus episodes for Revive Ministries.
Oh, congratulations, man. That's exciting.
Yeah, so it's been crazy how a year can change the way you see things.
Mm-hmm.
And our guest today, obviously everyone's seeing him right now. He's no stranger, but he's also the one who encouraged me to even start this. I was on the fence for a while. I was like, should I do it? Should I not? Mm-hmm. You learn a lot, and it's kind of funny, kind of subtly goes with the theme of what we're going to be talking about today.
Right.
He's a good friend, returning guest. Welcome back, Sebastian. Thank you for joining us today. Anyway, this month theme is for the podcast. It's okay to fall, and I know it's kind of punny with the scenery of fall behind me, but
I get it now. That's what.
But fall in the context of failure in life. In recovery, I find it's counterintuitive to not provide room to grow through our failures. Life is not static, and as people in and out of recovery, you don't have to have a mental illness. You don't have to have all this, but it is good to provide room to heal.
Yes.
Room to grow. We are all related to. We all relate right now to this common thread of uncertainty that all of us face right now. So, I remember. I just the last podcast we had. I had my friend Mike, and I gave him this quote, and it's the same quote I'm going to give you. But before I begin that, I want to give you a little disclaimer. If you are in crisis, please seek out appropriate professional help immediately. There's a crisis hotline for the U.S. It's 1-800-273-8255. It's a National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. I'll put that in the notes. Anyway, here we go. Here's a quote, Sebastian. It says, "The measure of intelligence is the ability to change." Albert Einstein. Wow. Intelligence a lot of times is measured on how much we know, but more times it's not how well we adapt. Life is not static. Sebastian, hear this quote. What comes to mind, and why is this quote especially important today?
Wow, man, that's good. Yeah, can you repeat that again? The measure of intelligence is the ability to change.
Ability to change.
Okay. Yeah, that's powerful, man. Albert Einstein, genius.
Yeah.
In his own work and whatnot, but yeah, I think there's it speaks volumes to. I think someone that when we think of someone that is wise or that has done well in life, for example, Thomas Edison, right? I don't remember off the top of my head, but how many times he tried to turn on a light bulb, right, or to get a light bulb to function, right? Thousands of times, and so in hindsight, we're like, oh wow, yeah, he's a genius. But at that time, I'm sure people were like, you're foolish, man. You keep trying, you keep changing your everything. And in reality, he was actually being wise, right, in his ability to change. So I think it's an important function. I think even in reframing how we look at failure sometimes, right, where you're gonna face times where you're gonna fail. Things like we both have podcasts, we both do different things, and sometimes you do something, it doesn't work out.
No, it doesn't.
But then you learn something from it, right? Or something goes from that branches out to something that may be more successful, right? So I think change and being. Change is always uncomfortable. It's never. It's never nice, but I think it is a true sign of someone that is wise and that is seeking to grow. And adapt and obviously grow, change, adapt, but someone that is wise to say, hey, I want to go beyond this. I want to do more, right? And I think it's a great quality and a character quality for a wise person that is okay with change and says, hey, change is essential, right? Because if you don't change, you become stagnant and complacent. And it's kind of like that quote, since we're throwing quotes out. It's like good is the enemy of best or so, these businesses where it's like, when you in complacency can kill, because it's just, you just get used to, okay, this is the routine, this is the normal, but you can go on, you can do so much better, right? You can do best. And sometimes because of the fear that we have for change and for different, we don't change. So.
Yeah. I just remember when I was in high school, I did theater. I did a little bit of music.
Okay.
And the funny thing was, my theater director would say, I would feel uncomfortable. It's nerve wracking up there on stage. I said that means you're growing. That's basically it's like the uncomfortable parts is when you're growing the most. We kind of define success in just knowing stuff or having stuff, but a lot of times it's not that simple. Knowing stuff and having stuff is I don't know. It's kind of funny because you see it a lot. I play a lot of games, video games, and sometimes, and like you see people like play like strategy games, and they have to have everything, like and to a fault,
right?
And, I feel like no one wants to play with them, and that tells me a lot because for me, you have to be willing to have that pie in the face moment because that allows you to kind of really assess. I remember we were talking about before. I remember the good news is only as good as the bad news was. There's no contrast, there's no learning or no growth. You know what I mean? So with that same idea, this month, like I said, is theme is okay to fall. We can try to control situations in life through preparation, but relationships with friends and loved ones don't work that way. We find out real quick, especially in our own mental well-being. When you hear failure being okay, what comes to mind? And what moments or moment in your life or someone that you've seen or maybe someone who inspired you that you've seen it actually be a positive thing? Because it's never addressed as a positive thing to fail, So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I was just thinking as you were talking, I think I see, trying to see failure, trying to change your perspective of failure and how to see failure as an opportunity rather than the negative idea of failure that we have, right? We're like, oh man, I wasted my opportunity. It's like, no, this is an opportunity for you to grow, to see, okay, I realized this doesn't go, right? Or this doesn't work. I need to, change how I'm doing this, my method, my approach. And so I think it's a crucial point. Yeah, I think in everything that we do, that it is okay to fail, because when we come to that point, which is hard, it's hard. I'm thinking back, I did a unit of chaplaincy at the hospital here in Daytona or Ormond Beach. And I remember going in, it's obviously whenever you're new to something, you're kind of already in that mindset, like, I am going to fail. But it's important to know, like, hey, you are going to have moments, in that chaplaincy. I remember conversations that I would have with some of the patients that I just messed up. I didn't know what to say. It got awkward. It got cringy, and I'm just like, all right, I got to go, and it was just like, but it's like, if, the fact that I think what made it better was coming into it and saying, hey, when I fail, not just if, but when that happens, it's okay. It's a learning process, because the next time that I come to the same situation that might be similar, I already know what works and what doesn't, right? So it's going to help me out. So I think seeing it and framing it as an opportunity rather than as a missed opportunity, right? Opportunity for growth, opportunity for change. And it's embarrassing, right? But I think one thing that we have to do, I don't know if we've talked about this in the podcast, but I think just in our normal conversations, everyday life conversation, just the idea of like you're saying, that pie in the face moment, like being able to laugh at yourself. I think you see a lot of people that get so angry and upset, and it's just like, don't say that, and just riled up whenever and being able to say, hey man, I was a fool. Like, I messed up. Yeah. I mean, Robert and I, one of our first moments hanging out together was at Hooligans, and in my attempt to clear the middle of the table so that we could all see each other, I knocked down the water that spilled on Robert, right? And so it went both ways, right? For Robert, meeting the guys kind of for the first couple of times there, just getting all this spill, he could have reacted in a different way. I could have just been like, I'm out of here. This is too embarrassing, right? And it was a failure on my part, but it was it's a funny memory now looking back, right? So I think being able to laugh at yourself and be like, hey, I'm a klutz. Like, I drop things sometimes. I don't measure, my steps sometimes, and it's okay. And just laughing, I think, because it's just gonna make your life a lot. I think, at least for you, and how when you relate to things that happen to you, people are gonna make fun of you. People are gonna say things about you. You're gonna mess up. So if you're able to be in the proper mindset when that happens, right? Not putting yourself down, but more of just, hey, taking yourself, less seriously than hey, be like, hey, it's okay. Sebastian, you messed up. You dropped the water. Now
Yeah.
Robert got his whole shirt wet, but it's okay. It happens.
It's okay.
You know?
It's funny because I just remember the conversation we had right when this whole pandemic happened, and I said to you, I think we were talking. I said, people will not remember what we made a mistake in. They'll remember if we did something. That's it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
That's
like,
yeah.
Because the thing is, like, we could go ahead and be like so calculating, be like, Sebastian, it's not right. It's not right, and we'll just do nothing. And for me, like, I feel like with COVID, as bad as it is, and I'm not minimizing those who have suffered, who have lost, but at the same time, it granted, the opportunity to learn, to just go ahead and do.
Yeah.
Fail forward in a sense, because the thing was, I didn't know, like, I would say I was forced to not depend on certain things.
Yeah,
I had to force us being faith-based. Obviously, God is a huge part of our of how we kind of lean towards. But at the same time, like you said, sometimes we get so stuck on knowing things, so stuck on titles and what we're classified as. But at the end of the day, people just want to hear that you're hearing them. They just want to be, feel like they're part of something. There's one saying that says, I think it's from Thomas Edison. You mentioned him before. No, it was Benjamin Franklin. He said, tell me and I'll forget. Teach me and I might remember. Involve me and I'll learn. That's it.
I like that.
And it just shows the importance. And I think today you kind of see it more, how involvement is so important. We try to find different ways through these mediums that we have to involve people in various new unique ways. I want to switch gears to just one quote. It's kind of strong. I guess it's kind of strong, but I'd like to kind of like just digest it in the way that I'll let you go ahead and hear it, and then I'll share my point of view. Okay. I just like it. Just so here it goes. It goes: if your emotional ability aren't in hand, if you don't have self-awareness, if you're not able to manage your distressing emotions, if you can't have empathy and have effective relationship, then no matter how smart you are, you're not going to get very far. Wow. It is pretty brutal, but at the same time, it just puts an emphasis on what the important things of connection. It's not just knowing things. And I feel like there's this impersonal approach sometimes when we're trying to encourage people, because people are subjected to their experiences, whether it's their faith or whatever it is, and having that open-mindedness, willingness to hear. So what are your take on that?
Yeah, two things that stick out, right? I feel like the beginning, if your emotional abilities aren't in hand, if you don't have self-awareness, if you're not able to manage your distressing emotions. The first part I feel like talks a lot, and I think it's a great balance, right, between yourself, right? Do you have a handle on yourself, right? Are you first of all aware that we all have issues? We're all dealing with our mental health and mental stability, mental life, and trying to get better as we process, as we learn new things. And but I think it's powerful if you're not able to manage your distressing emotions, right? And because if you're not in control of those emotions, or in control of yourself to an extent, right? And you're just allowing your emotions to really take over and control you at every point, that can really affect then, as the second part goes, into your relationships, right? If you can't have empathy and have effective relationships, then no matter how smart you are, you're not going to get very far. So I think it's like a mix of, and I think you talk about it through your podcast, of just being aware of yourself, but also aware of whatever you're doing and dealing with in your mind, however your thought processes are formed or whatever, that's going to affect your relationships with others, right? Yeah. If you don't have a handle at the core, and understanding, I am dealing with some mental health issues, and then your relationships are gonna just be interesting, right? It's interesting to see how I know one thing I learned going to graduate school about differentiation of self, as we were talking about family dynamics and talking about how many times we see that, right? Where in a relationship, for example, one of the individuals does not have a differentiation of their self. Like their self is merged with the other person. So depending how the other person feels or what they're doing, how they're expressing their love, like they're not confident in themselves. They need that validation from their partner, or they need that love. They need, they mirror those emotions, right? And it's pretty unhealthy to be in that sort of relationship, because even as a friendship, for example, if Robert comes to me and he's very frustrated and upset, and I'm not confident in who I am to be able to hear his emotions and say, all right, that's Robert right there. If I'm not differentiated by myself, then I'm going to take on those emotions too. And I'm like, oh, I'm frustrated now and I'm upset, and I'm like, man, what's going, and now we're not really in the right mental space to be able to move on from the situation.
Yeah.
But if I'm kind of confident in my emotions, if I have a handle about it, if I'm not easily swayed by the emotions or what other people are doing or saying, then I'm able to, hey, Robert, what's going on, man? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's tough, man. How can we get through this, right? Rather than having two people stuck in the mud, you have one person that, it's like if you're in the mud, right? And then I see you in the mud and I jump in there with you.
Yeah.
And it's like now we're both stuck in the mud. Like, what's the problem? And whereas I could be on the side trying to throw something in to help you get up and, assist you, right? So I think it's very important to have a handle on, first of all, be self-aware, right? And I think that goes with what we've been saying, right? Understanding that pie in the face moment. You got to laugh at yourself. You got to be like, hey, things are going to happen. And at the same time say, hey man, I'm dealing with some things. I got to be real about it. I'm dealing with this. I'm frustrated. I tend to get down. I have some anxious thoughts. How can I process through this? Because it's going to affect how you relate with others. And no matter how smart you are, if you don't have these good relationships, like you might get maybe far in business life and, make money, if you're going a ruthless way. But in terms of having I think a happy, holistic life, it's going to be hard to come by, because money can't buy you love or happiness, for that matter, right? You can look like it does, but in the core, it doesn't. So
I do. I remember, one of the biggest struggles was sometimes losing people that were in my life, and a lot of times I put the burden on myself that I could have done more. But the thing was about that is it was not realistic. And for me, I know even now, like you were mentioning, if someone comes to me, even if they're in distress, and maybe I know some, but if I'm not able to put 100% to be there, I'm not a professional myself. I could give them the right direction to where to go to get help. But the thing is, we all play a part. That's why it's so important. Like, I'm not the one who's going to save that person. The idea is providing a safe room. And that's, I guess, what we're kind of going back to, having that room to heal, that room to make those mistakes, and not be subjected by our value going down because of it. And I feel that's very important, especially the circles I've been in, because it's when you have that value, when you have that safe place, and it fosters the willingness. And willingness sounds so simple. We overlook it, but willingness, and sometimes in my neck of the woods, is the willingness to get help.
Yes.
Well, and sometimes, unfortunately, last month was suicide awareness. They had World Suicide Day in September, and sometimes the willingness to get help is, that could save someone's life, and that is huge. So like that willingness is huge. And like I like, I know in church we're talking about like good neighbor, and I like the idea of a community that excludes even one member is no community at all. I don't know who said that. It's an unknown quote, but
anonymous.
I like anonymous, but I do like the idea. So I'm gonna, with that kind of train of thought, I do like kind of extrapolating this idea of we talked about failure, we talked about having room to heal, and we talked about value. But a lot of times what we forget, when we're going through all this, is gratitude. How grateful we are for what we have. There's a lot of things we could say we don't have, but I'm sure there's plenty of things you could say that you do have. But it's just how we look at things, what is really important. I always share this story because I think it's one of the most innocent stories. John Lennon, as a child, he teacher asks the class, what do you want to be when you grow up? And everyone says all this stuff, all these professional titles and that are impressive, which, denote the idea that you need to know things and be well rehearsed. But, John Lennon says, I just want to be happy. I want to be happy. And the teacher said, you got it wrong. But, us thinking about it now, I feel like he got it more right than we like to admit.
Right.
But anyway, any other thoughts? As along the lines of failure. It's kind of one of those sticky situations because a lot of times people they're too afraid. One of the things I used to say is the things you try to control sometimes end up controlling you.
Whoa! Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. Yeah.
So. Yeah. Like control doesn't really do anything. We do want that kind of. It's different from preparing. When you prepare, you try to. But controlling is that there's no you're trying to make things airtight. Yeah. But relationships don't work that way. You know.
You're dealing with people, and there's always variables, right? You can have the game plan set up. I mean, we see it in our work, right? You can have everything. Okay, I think I have everything covered. All of a sudden, it's like a rainy day, and you didn't plan for a rainy day, and you're like, what? I thought this was impossible. So there's dealing with people, there's always variables. I think trying to be in control really always, I think, leads in some sort of frustration, right? Because even when it does happen and it turns out even when the product or what you're expecting turns out, sometimes you're so frustrated because you weren't controlling every aspect of it, and it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, or the process wasn't the same, but the product turned out right. That can still kill, mess you up.
Yeah, at what cost? You made the final product per se might be, but
right.
People don't put value on peace of mind. Peace of mind is huge. You continue to go down that stressful kind of. I need everything to be. I'm not saying not be professional. I do like preparing, but there's this idea of. You have to have some fluidity when it comes to anything, because there's always a margin of uncertainty. There's this one quote that I used before. I think it's from Rachel Naomi Remen. It says, "The willingness to consider possibility requires the tolerance of uncertainty." So it is important for us to have that fluidity because it allows us room to heal, allows us room to fail, and as we move forward, it allows us room to grow as a community, and it makes us see things differently. So when you see someone making a mistake, you won't be so hard on them because you know
how it feels, right?
Yeah, you know how it feels.
It's like
So with that being said, Sebastian, as we close, what any last thoughts on this whole idea?
I think just be one thing is just be able to, first of all, be gracious with yourself, right? Understand that things won't turn out always the way we want it to, but it's okay. It's part of life. Life throws so many curveballs at you that you're like, you're thinking it's a fastball, or I'm not really good with baseball, but and it's just curving. You're striking out left and right, but your homer's coming. And maybe you don't get a home run until maybe you got to get to first base, second base, and make your way there, right? But I think be gracious with yourself. And the second is just learn to laugh at yourself, as hard as that is. Obviously, it's always a learning thing, depending on what's being said or done or what's happening. Obviously, it's easier or harder, right? But being able to take yourself a little less seriously and be like, it's okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna fail. It's gonna mess up. It's not gonna come out. And obviously, it's not being pessimistic and saying like, oh, this is gonna suck. It's like no, I'm gonna try this out. Whatever happens, and we're gonna go from there, and we're gonna learn, right? And so then seeing that when you do fail, seeing it as opportunity for growth for yourself, or even say, hey, look, I learned what doesn't work. So now when someone comes to tell, I learned this with the podcast, right? You have all these grand illusions and visions of it. But I've learned a lot that I've been able to, like you were saying, right? Help others that want to do this and say, hey, if you're going to do a podcast, don't do what I did when I started. Try this or try that, right? Or make sure you have this and that. And I think it's not only, and I think that's a beautiful part of the relationship, right? Where your failures can then be kind of a stepping stone towards success for someone else, right? And maybe that's your success, right? Maybe that's going to be your your legacy is helping others succeed, and you might see it as a failure because you never succeeded, right? But your success is also in helping others succeed and become all that they are. So yeah, I think it's just reframing, right? Like you're saying, it's okay to fail, it's okay to fall, but reframing failure to say, hey, it's just an opportunity to try this again, right? To you know, Michael Jordan used to say, and then Michael Scott coined it in The Office, but he said you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, right? And so if you're scared of failing, you're never gonna really know, hey, what would have happened? You know, even if I made one shot out of 100, you would have never known if you could make one unless you took that one. So
I do like the idea that we the one thing that, you know, I just want to close with is the idea that our connections matter more than we like to admit. And we're going to be talking about that next month in the family theme of November. But at the same time, it's important for us to also allow ourselves to make mistakes in a way that allows us to grow, because with that, I feel it really gives us a good broader picture of what really is important. You know, it's you know, at the end of the day, we're all 5-year-old kids trying to just say, I want to be happy. That's all it is. And with that being said, I do appreciate you always coming back on, Sebastian. Thank you again.
Oh no, Thank you.
And those who are listening, I just want to let you know that you can find anything that is on Revive Ministry through the various platforms. You know, ReviveMinistryFL.com on the website, on the Facebook, Revive Ministries FL, to search for it, Instagram, and also YouTube. We're starting this whole live stream, but also video, as you can see today. And I just want to leave you with this one last quote, and it says, "Tell me." I used it before. I used it again. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Well, you know, I think it's important for us to know. Involvement is important. So tell me and I forget. Teach me, I may remember. Evolve me and I learn. Benjamin Franklin.
That's good.